Gareth, the setup looks different. The tan looks a bit topped up. Where are you?
I am in the Eastern Mediterranean. I will reveal more as the show goes on. No, I'll tell you right now. I'm in Cyprus. It's beautifully warm. I just came away for a few days to escape the drizzle, the sleet, and the darkness at 3:30 p.m. after those clocks went back. But I'm back in time for Fight Night on Saturday night on talkSPORT, and also for the big Ben Eubank next week. How about you? I mean, obviously I've seen you over the last week as well. We were at the same event in Manchester on Saturday night. But how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been a good week, as you said. The lead up to that Joshua Buatsi, Zach Parker. I feel like we're now starting to finally, and we'll get to this, finally start to ramp up the Eubank Ben second fight. I felt like it's been a bit quiet, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to see a few sort of behind the scene pieces come out. The face off dropped yesterday or the day before yesterday, and there's other little pieces as well. So yeah, getting excited about Ben Eubank. But I almost feel like it's lacking something, which I guess means that these guys are going to probably do something a bit crazy on fight week. But yeah, should we get to Zach Parker, Joshua Buatsi, or Joshua Buatsi, Zach Parker? You were there, you were ringside. Who did you score it for?
I scored it for Joshua Buatsi, exactly like the two judges, 96-94.
Interesting.
It was controversial for different reasons for me. Zach Parker went to his knees 8 times during the fight. I don't reward that, I'm afraid. I know it's a tactic in boxing. I thought Joshua Buatsi won the opening round. I thought Zach Parker won the next 4, and I gave the last 5 to Joshua Buatsi, who came on strong. Zach Parker, yes, he had his tactics, but he didn't look like he wanted to stand up to Joshua Buatsi. I thought his body language all night said he wanted to run. I understand people. I could have scored it 95-95. There were a couple of swing rounds. I could have scored it 96-94 to Zach. It was a very close fight, but it wasn't a robbery, and it wasn't. I don't agree with it. All the oh me miserum, oh poor me stuff afterwards. I don't get it. And I, like you, I spoke to both men afterwards. I know Zach was very unhappy. I get it. So was Virgil Hunter about the Zach Parker tactics. So was Joshua Buatsi about the Zach Parker tactics. All the cloth rinsing afterwards that this was a robbery. No way. Sorry, don't buy it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people are swinging the way of Zach and are saying those words exactly: robbery and injustice. And I'm with you to a point. Like the continuation of the fall downs from Zach Parker. I'm like, what's going on here? I think he's come out and said he was getting pushed down. He wasn't getting pushed down. He just fell down.
He's admitted
Every time
it
they
was
clinched.
tactical, Eddie. He's admitted it was tactical, and that there was no point engaging in against a guy who was clearly a bigger puncher. When Joshua landed, it was a 4 out of 10 performance from Joshua Buatsi. He was one paced, no momentum, tactically inept on the night. Wasn't listening to Virgil Hunter. They weren't aligned. I get all that. But Zach Parker admitted on talkSPORT this week with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith that it was a tactic to do that, not to clinch and engage with him. He should have had a point or even 2 taken away. 8 times he went down. That's not boxing, I'm afraid. Just as much as, Joshua Buatsi was fairly inept on the night, and I'm very unhappy with his performance.
There's always been a conversation in football about the level of refereeing in football. Like, do we have the best refs because we've got the best league? You could argue at the moment that British boxing's top of the tree in terms of what we produce, in terms of the amount of big fights every weekend. And this is now back-to-back fight weeks where we've questioned the ref at the end. We questioned Howard Foster for what was maybe considered an early stoppage in the Wardley-Parker fight. And now a lot of people are asking, why wasn't a point taken away from Zach Parker for the continuing fall downs? What's going on there? I mean, do we have to look at our refs? I mean, look, there's some good ones, and I don't want to dig them out and it's a hard job. But do we have to look at the refs? Because I feel like if that's a fight in America, a point or maybe 2 points are being taken away.
Am I thinking it was Mike Alexander in there on the night, the ref in the fight? I think
you might be right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Mike Alexander. He warned Zach at least 3 times, didn't he, about going down? He
Yeah,
should have taken a
yeah,
point away because it was tactical, and it was clearly tactical. And I think he was fatigued as well, by the way. That's why he was going down. He was working very hard. I mean, I think he'd literally run a mile in the first 2 rounds, hadn't he? Trying to avoid. He was clever to
yeah.
avoid Joshua Buatsi, but he should have had a point deducted. I think it's a very well made point by you. You can't warn someone 3 times and let them go down 8 times in a fight. David Hay did it, by the way, against Vladimir Klitschko all those years
Yep.
ago. Decided not to engage, not to get exhausted by the much bigger man, but he just looked foolish on the night as well. And he lost that bout, and then he complained about his toes being broken afterwards, and kind of completely ruined his public relations in that post-fight press conference. But it's a bit like Zach, and I do feel for him, don't get me wrong. And he's talked about his family, and this should be an opportunity for him to develop his career and get a big fight after this. And he will get big fights. His stock has risen. But the ref should have, it's a very well-made point by the ref, should have deducted a point, if not 2.
All right, let's hear from Zach Parker. You mentioned earlier that he was on Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Paul Smith and Spence Oliver. This is what he's basically said he would like to do in the aftermath of Saturday.
Obviously, I thought I won quite convincingly, and most people online think it, and people who was at ringside think it as well. Obviously, the judges thought different, and now we're obviously trying to talk about it to everyone out there. And I think even like you lot said, that they thought I won, and obviously I didn't get the roll of the dice on the night.
So Zach Parker there saying he's going to be looking to appeal the result with the WBA. We've seen fighters go down this route before, and some have been successful, some haven't. Any chance that the WBA look at that and say, okay, let's do a rematch?
Yeah, I think there is a possibility. I'd see it again. It'd be a different fight second time around. And I think the points we're making about him going down to his knees those 8 times would be penalised in the second fight. Yes, it will be a different fight. I agree that he needed a tactical fight. He didn't punch as hard as Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi looks like from a different weight division. He's a very big, natural 175-pound fighter. He hits harder. Yes, it's worth an appeal. But in my view, there's an easy and veritable opponent there in Lyndon Arthur, who was very good on the night against Brad Ray, in a phenomenal fight, by the way, for the European title. A phenomenal fight. Go and fight Lyndon Arthur. Perfect opponent for him, in my view.
Good shout, good shout. I'm happy you mentioned that. I do want to talk about that performance and that fight of the night, because it was a fight of the night. All right, let's talk about Joshua Buatsi then. Obviously, this is coming off a defeat to Callum Smith, in which was maybe the fight of the year so far. It was a fantastic scrap. There were some people whispering around me, like, has Callum Smith taken something out of Buatsi because of that performance? Or was it just an off night? Was it just getting over a defeat, the mental fatigue of that, the physical fatigue of it? Or do we have a bigger problem with Buatsi? Because I think we'd have expected Buatsi to blow out someone like Zach Parker, and that wasn't the case. Again, the fact that you maybe could have seen a draw suggests that Buatsi's maybe slipped a bit, or am I just jumping here?
No, Zach Parker fought a very smart fight and spoilt, didn't he? So you can't take that away from him either. No, I think Joshua Buatsi has peaked. I do think he's peaked. I think this is his style. I think he will fare well, and he spoke to me about this, as did Virgil afterwards for talkSPORT, about the matchups for Buatsi. He looked really good against Callum Smith, even though he was outgunned, outthought, outboxed on the night. He was taken to school in some ways by Callum Smith, even though that was a fairly close fight as well, by the way. I had that very close. It was a brilliant fight, but stylistically it suited Buatsi. Buatsi is what he is now, and I don't think he's going to change from that. That's why the fight with Anthony Yard, with David Benavidez, with Dimitri Bivol, with Artur Beterbiev, they all work. They'll all be good fights, because he'll go out there. He's a very, very tough man. He's almost like a Route 1. Can I say Route 1 football? He wants to stand in front of you.
Yeah.
He wants to jab. He wants to hold. He wants to throw 1-2. He just wants to engage. Look, 9-year career. He'd lost 1 fight in 20 fights going into this. That was his first defeat, of course, Callum Smith. Did it take a lot out of him? Yeah, it took something out of him, but he wasn't able to engage in the same way. For me, Addy, it's all about the opponents they match him with. And I think those 4 that I mentioned would all produce great fights. He may not win any of them. He may just beat Anthony Yard, and he may fight the winner of Benavidez and Yard on November the 22nd. The best card left in the year now, in my view, given the fallouts of the others, which we can discuss if you want. But I think he is what he is, and he isn't going to change. And it's been 4 years with Virgil Hunter now as well.
And that last point, I think, is the significant point, because I don't think I've seen an improvement with 4 years of Virgil Hunter. And that's my issue with it. And you're right, he could have peaked, but I feel like we've lost his peak, and I haven't seen any improvements with Virgil. I almost feel like, Virgil was outside the ring giving instructions. He wasn't even inside the apron and like face to face with Buatsi. He was almost just, Buatsi had to keep looking out to hear what Virgil was saying. And I almost feel like Buatsi, as you know, is so laid back. He's a killer in the ring, but he's laid back. Virgil's got this kind of laid back character as well.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's 2 laid back people.
Yeah.
I almost feel like he needs someone that's going to light the fire up his backside sometimes, Buatsi. Like, you're losing. Like, almost Teddy Atlas-esque, if you like. And I just feel like it's not quite sinking, because 4 years is a lot of time to really be on sync with your trainer. And I just don't feel that's the case. And look, this is not disrespecting Virgil. He's a great trainer and Buatsi's a great fighter, but it doesn't mean great trainer and great fighter work. And I feel like I've not seen it work.
I just think he is what he is, and he isn't going to change. The habits are there. I think he's very comfortable with Virgil. We know what Virgil did with Andre Ward all those years ago. We know what he did with Amir Khan. Virgil used to stand outside the ring for Amir Khan, by the way, as well. It's just a habit of his. He doesn't like poking his way into the ring between rounds. I think he's had a few health issues as well, and he might not be too fast getting in and out of there. I have great fondness and deep fondness for Virgil Hunter. Spent a lot of time in San Francisco and Oakland around him and around Amir Khan and around Andre Ward. I think he's a very special man. His parents were musicians and Black Panthers in the past. He's got an amazing, amazing history, of being involved in fights in what were called Smokies back in the day. I think Buatsi's very comfortable. He may only have 3 or 4 fights left, a couple of years. And if he can be matched against those big names, I think he deserves them. I do, because I think his tensile strength is there. As I say, he doesn't have to lose a lot of weight to stay at 175. I've always liked Joshua Buatsi, and he's always been that very calm man that says your name every sentence. He's incredibly focused. I think he's a beautiful human being. Maybe he just needs to remember to shave that beard, which he didn't do on Saturday night.
Said that to him after, didn't I? I said, look, what's with that? Normally you take it fully off, clean off, and you kept a little bit, and maybe that's the reason it wasn't your best performance. But look, hopefully, I know that him and his team are going to go over to Saudi Arabia to be ringside for Benavidez Yard. Why not just stay in the mix and fight those top guys now? Let's see what you've got. I think he's 32, Buatsi, so he's not a spring chicken anymore. It's now just big fights all the way. It has to be. That's why Queensbury have signed him. So let's see what he can do. You mentioned Lyndon Arthur, Bradley Ray. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, fight of the night by some distance. Lyndon Arthur's jab. You've seen jabs over the years. I mean, George Groves famously had one of the best jabs, I think, in British. Lyndon Arthur must have the best jab in British boxing.
Yeah, it's a very good call, actually. Tyson Fury's got a very good jab. Who else has got a good jab? Hamza Shiraz has got a good jab.
Hamza Shiraz is sharp, yeah. Good jab, Shiraz.
Cal Brook always.
But they don't seem to have the same power that Lyndon has on it. It's like a ramrod jab from Lyndon. It's so, and because he's a massive light heavyweight as well.
Absolutely, and he's again. There's a union of 2 great people and names in Pat Barrett, his trainer. And who's always kept Lyndon on the straight and narrow. Lyndon revealing, by the way, before that fight with Brad Ray, it's the first time he's had a proper nutritionist before a fight. And in his last couple of fights, it's the first time he's done proper camps. And he is from Moss Side. He's from a very rough area of Manchester. He's proper hood. As is Pat Barrett and always was. I don't know if you've watched, you do your watch-alongs with G-Man, even though I'm the real G-Man. You do your watch-alongs with G-Man. Do a watch-along of one of the old Pat Barrett fights at light welterweight or welterweight. Addy, he was an animal. An animal. Anyway, back to Lyndon Arthur. Brilliant jab. I'd said in the lead up that Brad Ray, who'd obviously come up from middleweights with only one loss against Tyler Denny, all the way up to, well, he's a giant frame. How he squeezed it into 160, I'll never know. He needed to get beyond that jab very early. And it looked like he'd succeeded in the second round when he landed his hellacious left hook and put Lyndon down. He looked like he was going to be finished. But Lyndon, great jab, great tenacity, wanted that European title belt. Can't be denied. He's caught between British, Commonwealth, European, and elite world level. But brilliant performance. Fight of the year contender, in my view, not just fight of the night. Fight of the year contender. Back and forth. Brad Ray was extraordinary to stay in there. Obviously, protege of Ricky Hatton. We got the 10 bells. That was brilliant. Came in the blue shorts to Blue Moon. Lovely fight. And that's what made the bathos of Buatsi and Parker even worse, because we were all on tenterhooks after that last but one fight.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic fight. Can I put you on the spot? Do you mind? No. Can I put you on the spot and ask you a question here? Top 5 light heavies in Britain.
Callum Smith.
This is Callum Smith one, yep. Who are you going to, Yard or Buatsi?
I know, it's difficult. I'm going Buatsi beats Yard. Okay. Yeah. And so Yard 3, just on styles. Mm-hmm. 3. Ben Whittaker 4, Willie Hutchinson 5.
Oh, Ben's high.
Sorry. Does Willie Hutchinson beat Lyndon Arthur? Oh.
I've got Lyndon 4, Willie 5.
So you haven't even got Ben Whittaker in your top 5?
Not yet. No, it's only one win so far with Liam Cameron. I think all the others have got bigger wins, bigger performances. Lyndon beat Yard.
I'm good mates with. All right, he did. That's true. But Yard's beaten him twice. Does Ezra Taylor? Because I was having this debate ringside with Ezra, who I love. Ezra the Cannon Taylor. He said, "I want to fight Ben Whittaker." I said, "I don't think you're ready for him. He's tricky." Does Ezra Taylor beat Ben Whittaker right now?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say no, but happy to be wrong, because I think both guys, that's the fight of the egos. I don't know who's got the biggest ego out of those two. Honestly, that's the biggest ego light heavyweight fight of all time between those two model-looking brothers. So I'm going to say Ben takes it just, but with no confidence.
It's a brilliant division, though, isn't it? We've mentioned really 7 light heavyweights there. We haven't mentioned Craig Richards. We haven't mentioned who's coming close to the end, I think he's mentioning at the moment.
Dan Aziz obviously fights Richards, doesn't he, in the matchroom card in Africa?
Exactly. Yep. Dan Aziz. Who else? Are we missing one other name? There's 9. We've mentioned 9 there, but what a 9.
Yeah, what a 9. What a 9. Honestly, it's a really
Callum
good division.
Simpson, if he steps up.
And he's fighting Troy Williamson. I'm sure he will look and step up into the division. He's big enough to make 175. So there you go. Fascinating division at the moment. All right, very quickly, Pat Brown got a knockout in Orlando, stopped Felix Valera. How excited should we be about Pat Brown? Like Sam Jones and Eddie will continually say that they've got something here. And I always think it's a bit too early to go on someone, but they're continually sort of banging and beating the drums that we have got a special cruiserweight here. Have you seen enough? Should we get excited now?
What is he, 5-0?
5-0.
Yeah, look, he's very powerful. He's got a massive dig on him, and power carries you a long way in that weight division. And obviously, I think Pat's arguably big enough he's cruiserweight, of course. He's arguably big enough to step up and be a small, fast heavyweight. Yeah. And if he can carry that power, that's amazing. Rather like Jaya Pataya, which again is an enticing matchup down the line if it happens. I don't think Pat Pat's been around a long time in terms of the amateurs. He's got all the pedigree, he's got all the ingredients, he's got the personality, he's got the wingman in Dave Allen, or maybe it's the other way around. He's with the right promoter right now. Yes, he's got the foghorn mouthpiece in Sam Jones. He's even got Simon Jordan's support as well.
Yeah,
he's a great character. I've really enjoyed being around him every time I've seen him and met him. He's obviously got a lot of qualities, but he hasn't been up against a stiff test yet, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. But I think, there's every prospect he's going to be a world champion and a future star in British boxing.
Yeah, there are some good domestic cruiserweight matchups they can make. So hopefully we get some of those very, very quickly so we can actually see where he is with regards to British level. But they're expecting big things from him. It's almost crept up on us, I think. It hasn't been bang and wallop and crash and bang like the first one, but it's here. It's here. What are your thoughts about it? I mean, does it feel quiet or is it just going to be ramped up now in the next few days?
Well, it's deafeningly quiet, if I can put it that way. Ring Magazine sent me out, and many of us, I think, a nice little video promo that I shall share with the boxing aficionados shortly after recording our show. I'll be brutally honest about this. Obviously, it's being underwritten by Ring Magazine and Turki El Sheikh. These boys are earning, I understand, in the region of 8-9 million each again. Yes, wow. April was clearly in the running for a fight of the year. It was exactly what we wanted, with all that fun and the drama of the father of Eubank and all of those things that happened on the night. It was a brilliant event to be at. One of my favourite events of recent years. The boys delivered. I thought it was clearly 116, 112 to Eubank. But as I sat looking for storylines a couple of weeks ago, Addy, in the build-up to this, I thought I could do a piece, I could do a feature, I could talk about great rematches in history that are produced or not produced after a great first fight. You can go back to the Ward Gattis and the Barrera Morales and Pacquiao and loads of opponents he's had rematches with and go back through history. But I couldn't find lots of storylines or ideas for having this second fight. And fully on record, I went one and done when it was done. For me, it was one and done. And you couldn't make it as big as it was the first time. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think the script writers, if you like, for the first one, nailed it. It was almost Oscar nomination worthy. There were just so many plots, as you say. I mean, in your pieces for the Telegraph, I mean, you probably couldn't stop writing because there were so many subplots and stories and subplots of subplots. As I build up to this one, I'm like, okay, I'm a bit like you. Okay, where are the stories? Yeah. The press conferences didn't yield anything. The Eubank senior story's kind of been told. We don't know if he's involved or not. Not many people seem to care. So I'm with you that we are struggling for stories. I guess the only story and the biggest story maybe is that the first fight was so good that these guys maybe could deliver again. So maybe the story is just playing the first fight as opposed to trying to find other stories. But yeah, I think it's been quiet. It's funny because I actually messaged someone at DAZN. I'm like, okay, when are we going to sort of just release all the pieces of content that have been filmed? Because we are not long, 10 days away? Yeah, 10 days away. Like, what's going to happen? So, yeah, very, very quiet, and which does surprise me.
Too quiet.
Too quiet. Yeah, too quiet. Agreed.
Can I say why? And why I think both of these guys, Conor Benn has ring-fenced himself away from the media because of the difficulties he's gone through over the positive drugs tests that have obviously been disproven over time and gone sideways. And he's proved his innocence, if you like, or at least he's proved through the system that something went wrong and the testing was wrong. I'll park it there. But as a result, because I look back on a couple of interviews I did with Conor 2 or 3 years ago, and he was so out there with interviews and amazing. And he is still amazing to be around. Chris Eubank's earned more money and he becomes ring-fenced as well. He's harder to get to. And he's had things go on in his life, the estrangement from his father in certain ways, the loss of his brother Seb, which will have affected his life and looking after his nephew. So the guys' lives have changed as well. And I think, given that they are, I believe, on a guarantee of payment, they're selling the pay-per-view, but they're not selling the pay-per-view. And I'm not being critical of the two men, it's just life. But maybe the setup is wrong here. I'm still waiting on interviews with both men. I've spoken to their agents, their managers, their PR guys. I'm still waiting on interviews 10 days out. And it doesn't feel that they are prominent or prevalent in the media or in the fanboy sites or on the fanboy sites or doing media scrums. As I said, deafeningly quiet.
Yeah, you're right. Too quiet. For a fight of this magnitude, too quiet. Far too quiet. Let's hear from Eubank Jr. One thing that has changed from the last fight in April to this fight is that he's now back with Bomac. Obviously, Bomac guided him through that magnificent performance against Liam Smith. Bomac, obviously, known for his work with Terence Crawford. This is what Eubank had to say about his decision to link back up with Bomac.
You know, the man is, he is on fire, and we have a perfect record. We're 1-0 in rematches. We had a great camp for the Liam Smith 2 fight, and I wanted a fresh set of eyes and perspective on this particular fight. Jonathan Banks is a great coach, but we need to switch things up. I don't want another 12-round fight. I want to take this kid out. So we need a different strategy, a different mindset, a different approach. Bomac's that man to do that.
There you go. Basically said he doesn't want this to go to points. And with Bomac, there's a better chance of him getting this done within the distance. I like the link up. Again, I thought Liam Smith was maybe one of his best performances, especially considering what happened in their first fight. I don't mind it. I mean, if you're Conor Benn, you look across and you see, oh, that's Terence Crawford's trainer, it will give you a sense of fear because ultimately it's the trainer of the best fighter in the world. So I think it's a good link up back with Bomac.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I don't think Conor Benn feels any fear. I just think he turns a switch and just becomes an animal in the ring like his father was. He's got something incredible to prove to his father. I really like Conor Benn, always have done. You know, he's always been friend of talkSPORT until he slapped the microphone, and that's all done now. And, you know, we're friends again. And I know he was overly criticised or deeply criticised by the channel, by the company. We do many shows, so we do a brilliant job in boxing, both exposing things and promoting things and also presenting things on the sport, does the whole panoply. But I think Conor Benn is going to do exactly what he did last time. He's not going to sit back. He's going to throw his hands. I mean, the highlights are profligate from that first event. It's just extraordinary. And I think he'll come out and he'll do the same. I think Chris Eubank is going to have to drain his body down again for probably the last time. He did look good with Bomac against Liam Smith, but Liam Smith got an injury in that fight as well, or came in with an injury. I like the matchup. I like Bomac. He's an intensely lovable person. And let's hope he's not carrying a gun this time when he comes into the country.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking. I was actually just thinking. Yeah, I was actually thinking, how is he even allowed in the country? I was actually thinking about this just now. But look, he's here and he's a great trainer. One thing Chris did say, Eubank, and I think he's been slapped on the wrist for it, was this talk of Eddie or at least someone within the matchroom stopping the ambulance from getting away, which I think was wrong, and I think everyone's agreed of that. What he has now done is posted a video, I'm sure you've seen it, on social media. I don't know if it's mind games from Eubank, showing the ambulance being blocked. Again, I think it's more being blocked because 60,000 people are trying to leave the venue as opposed to anything else. But again, this is Eubank Jr. doing Eubank Jr. stuff. What do you make of it?
Well, as I've said to you before, I think what he does very cleverly, whether it's deliberate or not, he plays the victim and the villain at the same time. And he's playing the victim here while playing the villain. And yeah, I've seen the video. It doesn't really show a lot, to be honest. It's two ambulances behind a big gate at Tottenham Hotspur, supposedly. And I don't disbelieve him, by the way. But I don't think Eddie Hearn was standing in front of the ambulance doing this either.
Or was on the phone to them saying, don't go, don't go.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not his nature. Obviously, Robert Smith's been drawn into this as well, and they're looking at it, and it's, I believe, sub judice, or certainly with the lawyers at the moment. The Boxing Board of Control will be very, very unhappy about the ambulance not being allowed out. But we were all very, very unhappy, and we work for an hour at least after an event. When we left that venue at probably, I'm talking Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and just to put a gloss on the story, Chris Eubank has said he was kept in the ambulance in the arena when he wasn't very well and was needing to rehydrate and all those things after being chronically dehydrated, as we found out afterwards. He was not allowed to leave the arena for the stadium for 20 minutes. The ambulance was held up. Now, it'll be interesting to find out, and if that is the case, because it mustn't be the case, because the safety of fighters must be paramount. But everyone I spoke to that night, and I cycled there. My daughter lives 4 miles away. I cycle there. I park my car. I cycle there. I chain it up to the railings because it is impossible. I don't know what happens with the football fans every time, but after boxing, it is seemingly impossible to get away from there quickly and get a car out of there and back to your
Agreed.
car.
It's awful. It's awful. Yeah, agreed.
I know people that were waiting till 2 a.m. for a cab.
Yeah, for what is a beautiful stadium, the best stadium in the country by a mile, surrounding it is just, it's honestly, it's like it's a nightmare for everyone. Yeah, it's chaos. It really is. It's horrendous. So yeah, I mean, if Eubank is listening to this, and I know he does listen to talkSPORT, it's that. That's the reason the ambulance couldn't leave. It's just a shame, but that's the reason the ambulance couldn't leave.
There was a logjam on the main road, Eddie, wasn't there?
Yeah, you've got 65,000 people trying to leave, and there's literally just 2 roads out.
Yeah, and there was no movement of traffic. And as I said, I was on my bicycle having to weave in and out of static traffic. So, that if anything, the ambulance would have got trapped in that traffic. So there probably is a reason behind it. It's not a good thing, but he's probably right to expose it as well at the same time, I think.
100%. Because if you are Robert Smith and anyone that works within the British Boxing Board of Control, you can't have, like, that could have been a serious situation. And thank God it wasn't. And you've got an ambulance that can't leave the scene because of traffic and congestion. Yeah, I actually... I'm with Chris Eubank Jr. I'm not with the fact, obviously, that he's saying Eddie or someone had any say in this, but he's right. An ambulance can't be blocked. It's ridiculous. I mean, that could have been very, very serious and stupid. I remember in the lead up to the first fight, you were Eubank Jr. is going to win, too big, too experienced, too strong, too everything, really. Where are you now in the lead up to this one? Is it the same narrative, too big, too strong, too experienced, or are you giving Conor a better chance?
Well, it's a very interesting point because just as we were discussing it, I was thinking about the photo that he put out of himself after the fight where he looks ragged. He looks like he's been beaten up. His body looks very drained of everything. It's obviously in the hospital like a couple of hours after the fight. He looks awful, doesn't he? If you recall, Conor Benn was like the conquering hero in New York at the Ring Magazine New York event a week later, interviews with everyone, almost like he'd just won the world title, looking really clean and well again after a 12-round war. And it took Eubank a long time to recover. So in terms of them being 8 years apart, Conor Benn 27 and Chris Eubank 35, it's going to take a lot out of Eubank. I don't think he stops Conor Benn this time. I think there's too much youthfulness and tensile strength and self-belief and determination in young Ben. I give him more of a chance this time, but I'm still swaying towards the bigger, stronger, more experienced man because Conor Benn hit him with everything last time and he didn't, to me, seemingly really hurt him. Fatigued him at times, but didn't really hurt him. And I thought I noticed Conor was the more hurt of the fighters during the event. So I'm really looking forward to fight week and seeing them again. But right now, I don't know about you, but right now I think it's Chris Eubank again. Points.
Yeah, same. I think Conor's going to be better, but I do think Chris isn't going to be as reckless and just try and have a phone booth fight with him. I think that's probably where Bomac comes into it, just to calm him down. Like, this isn't an ego thing, just win. And so I expect to see a better boxing performance from Eubank, which might mean it's not as good a fight this time round, but I think both will be a bit more cautious. I I don't expect Ben, apologies, to come out like a madman like he did the first fight. I expect him to be a bit more cautious.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
You think he's just going to run out? Yeah.
I do. But also, what I have noticed, Evie, and I want to know whether you managed to score it or even watched it back and scored it, but I've noticed a lot more respect. I've heard respect from Conor Benn towards Chris Eubank in one interview, which I really liked. And I know for a fact Chris Eubank really respects Conor Benn after that first fight. Certainly as fighters, anyway.
Okay, so let's see how it plays out. Anyway, the first fight?
Yeah.
First fight, 116, 112 Eubank.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly
116. And I won't be surprised if it's that again.
Yeah.
116, 112 Eubank. I expect Eubank to win this by 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah, it's funny though, when afterwards in the dissolution of the event and afterwards, and I spoke to many people because the fight crossed over and it brought many mainstream sports fans to the event. Loads of people that love Conor Benn that I know, lots of young men and young women who love Conor Benn. They love him as a role model and those kind of things. And he's a cool cat, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
he's a cool cat. Excuse my French. They thought he won, but based on the fact they loved what he was doing in the fights. And equally, most of the boxing fans knew that Eubank had won. So it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to next week. I really hope it lights a fire under the sport again.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good fights on the undercard as well that are getting sort of just left behind. Jack Catterall, Eka Usman's on the undercard. Sam Gilly, Ishmael Davis. Adam Azim versus Scooby's on the undercard. So there's some good undercard fights that are not getting the push that they deserve. So it isn't just about the main event, but these undercard fights are being forgotten. They need a push. Yeah. Like we haven't had an undercard press conference yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that should have happened ages ago.
But it is November and it is outside, so I hope it's not snowing.
Oh, yes. Forgot about that. Everyone's going to be looking at the weather forecast.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah.
Fingers crossed. All right, let's get straight into this. A couple of fights off. One, we didn't even know it was on, really, but we kind of knew behind the scenes. The other one, we definitely knew was on, but is now off. The one that is off is Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. This comes after Davis's ex-girlfriend filed a lawsuit against him for domestic violence. And in the end, boxing being the wild, wild west, I guess there was an avenue where this could have still happened, but they made the absolute right decision to pull this. And you know what, to be honest with you, I thought the event was flat anyway. Like, we just spoke earlier about Ben Eubank. I mean, this felt even flatter. Like, there was no hype whatsoever. Like, Gervonta wasn't selling it. Jake was trying, but I almost felt like no one really wanted to see this anyway.
Yeah, you're reminding me of the news conference now where it just went flat and didn't work. Gervonta Davis didn't play the game with Jake Paul. They look ridiculously different in sizes, which they are. 8 inches in height and 70 pounds in weight, 5 stone in weight. As I said to you all along, and I think you acquiesced with this as well, you agreed, you concurred with me, I just never saw them in a ring together. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't, we say it sometimes, I will believe it when I actually see them in a ring together. But it's more believable to see him in a ring with a heavyweight than Gervonta Davis, if I'm honest. Be that a Francis Ngannou or an Anthony Joshua. It's funny. Years ago, when you remember this story, when Floyd Mayweather and Miguel Cotto were due to fight, Floyd Mayweather was facing time in Clark County Jail, and he was allowed to have the fight with Cotto because the drop in Las Vegas, and by the drop I mean the amount of money that it brought in, meant that, and at the time he was the biggest star in American in world boxing, he was allowed to go ahead and fight Cotto, even though he'd been sentenced already for similar things, for domestic violence. So it's not good. I'm glad that Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian have taken a stance. Most Valuable Promotions have taken a stance. But they knew this before they made the fight, frankly. They knew that he was in trouble for these kind of things. It's not the first time. But I think they've made the right decision because they are brilliant for women's boxing. And technically and in terms of partiality, they've made the right decision.
They have. On Gervonta, I mean, his career has been littered with issues such as this. I mean, you feel like you don't go a year without hearing a story about Gervonta Davis, unfortunately. And I'm not talking about good stories. Someone's going to have to put him to the side. And I don't know if anyone is around. But look, we know his upbringing is from a very, very rough area. And I think people need to understand that. Like what this guy has been through as a kid. And I'm not making any excuses for him. But I'm just trying to say that he's a very troubled soul.
Yeah.
And money and power won't change that. And I feel like he's still not got over those things that he went through as a young boy, as a teenager. And the money's only seems to have masked it or almost put a plaster on a big wound. And that's not going to happen. He's not healing, is what I'm trying to get at. Someone needs to look out for him and look after him because this can't continue. Because this seems to be a story that's told every single year with Gervonta.
Yeah, like you say, they're very kind and very wise words for him, and I applaud you for that because it's very easy to throw bricks at people like Gervonta. And, you know, in many ways, if people don't know his story, he's obviously from Baltimore, Maryland, and where the first series of The Wire was made, and some of his relatives acted in that, and he was in children's homes in and out of his life growing up. Very, very tough time. He's an amazing boxer. He's an extraordinarily fearless man with incredible physical gifts, but very troubled inside. Reminiscent of the way Mike Tyson was through his 20s, frankly, without having the oxygen of publicity that Mike Tyson had at the time as one of the most famous people in the world and as a heavyweight, an incredible heavyweight. But Gervonta is from that highway. And like you say, the people around him are very important. He is troubled. I remember meeting him for the first time when he fought one of the Walsh brothers here on a Frank Warren card at, I think it was the Copper Box.
It was
the Copper about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was Liam Walsh at the Copper Box.
Yeah, I remember sitting around with him with a couple of others doing a deep interview with him and wanting to be really talk about The Wire at the time. It had just come out, and it was very hard to get him to open up. He's very closed. And that's my resounding feeling about him, that he needs people around him who he deeply trusts, because there's a lot buried in him, I imagine. I'm talking sympathetically like you were about him, because he is a soul, however bad things he's done recently or whatever he's done in terms of his baby mamas and stuff, that he needs help in some ways, and I hope he gets it. I really do.
Yeah. Netflix is still keen to put on a show, obviously not on that date, but before the end of the year. You mentioned earlier, you teased it, that Jake Paul has maybe reached out to Francis Ngannou. Other fighters have kind of put their hands up. Ryan Garcia has done it. Rolly Romero, Edgar Berlanga. There's been talk about AJ, which hasn't gone away. He will fight, Jake at the end of the year, by the end of the year. Who does he fight? What makes sense for a Netflix event? I mean, these have got to be big shows. What makes sense?
Well, first of all, what I'll do is cap that off by saying what we've seen with this is that I don't think it was selling really well. Let's see how well Benn and Eubank's selling as well, by the way, on that point. But it reminds me of KSI and Dylan Dennis not selling well as well, by the way, and that they don't always put promotions together that work. So in a way, I think it's a merciful rescue act that Gervonta Davis isn't stepping into a ring with Jake Paul. I'd like to see Francis Ngannou in there now. I'd love to back him in the last few days. Francis saying, "Listen, boy, don't you be cheeky to me," and Jake Paul winding him up in that maverick, marvelous marketeering way of his that he's got. Nate Diaz, a rematch is the most likely, I think. Annoyingly, Ryan Garcia has been ruled out by Oscar De La Hoya because of the Netflix, because of the DAZN deal. Ditto Anthony Joshua through Eddie Hearn's comments, even though Eddie Hearn put himself forward at one point if the money was good enough. I wouldn't mind seeing Jake Paul beat up Eddie Hearn. That would be good fun. Two of the biggest egos in boxing going at it. But wouldn't you love to see Jake Paul beating up Eddie Hearn?
Oh God, no comment. Okay. No comment.
I'm saying that in jest, Eddie. But he did put himself forward. Did you see the interview?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
But I think he should fight KSI. You know, who now wants Andrew Tate as his CEO? They've all gone WWE on themselves.
It's crazy, isn't
Andrew
it?
Tate's a whole different discussion as well, by the way. So
Yeah, I don't think that's a discussion for us. To
no,
be honest
exactly,
with the drum,
exactly.
KSI would probably do the bigger number of all of the people mentioned in terms of just
10
numbers.
to 1 he is.
KSI
10
versus
to 1.
Jake Paul.
10 to 1.
Yeah, wow, that would be incredible for Netflix. I mean, they couldn't get more excited if that would happen, because KSI is going to sell it, unlike Javonte Davis. So that could be something very, very special. I mentioned there's been a collapse of another fight. I was on stage a couple of weeks ago with Chisora and Dillian White and Frank Warren. It looked like we were inching closer to an announcement of a trilogy. No, that fight is now very unlikely to happen. In fact, it's not happening. Let's just be honest. We are 6 weeks away and there's been no announcement of it. So that's not happening. And so I'm guessing that date's gone as well now, December 13th.
Yeah, that's gone. And obviously, Dillian White and Derek Chisora, Derek's 50th fight was going to be the chief support to Moses Tauma against Kubrat Pulev for the WBA regular title. Obviously, that's happening at the IBA conference in Dubai now, but Frank Warren tells me that the belt will be stripped from Kubrat Pulev by the WBA, and that belt will be vacant next year, and Moses will fight next year. It's a shame, because we needed to see Moses in another fight this year, momentum and career, but it hasn't worked. A lot of people pricing themselves out of Moses Tauma fights at the moment. Derek a bit unhappy that the deal isn't right for him. Dillian White wanting that fight. I wasn't sure about that first of all. Jarrell Miller was signed originally with Derek. I liked that fight. I told Derek myself, but I also like Dillian and Derek as well. It's a trilogy. There's a lot of history there. It's probably the right fight. They both bring big numbers. It was to be in Manchester. Maybe they do it in London next year, in my view.
Maybe.
It's a shame. It's a shame. But at least you mentioned it earlier, Callum Simpson gets to fight Troy Williamson, and in what is not a log jam now in December 20th at the Leeds Direct Arena on the BBC, I think, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so, BBC 3. That one will be on.
But also the World's Amateur Championships are taking place over 2 weeks in Dubai with the IBA. You've got the Callum Simpson fight now. It was a bit of a log jam, December 13th to December 20th before. I'm glad that some fights aren't happening now, in my view, and it's, we shall see. I think there's December 22nd, 27th card as well, isn't there? So
there is. So that's the Inoue card in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Eddie's teased that AJ could fight on the undercard of that. I don't know how true that is. You mentioned the logjam. It's still pretty jammed because of the events in Nigeria and Ghana.
Yes, those as well.
A lot of British fighters.
Exactly.
Yeah. 19th Nigeria, 20th Ghana.
Behind the scenes, and I did send you a story I wrote in the Telegraph earlier this week. There are definitely talks going on for Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury now. Both needing warm-ups, and they're going to fight in the summer, hopefully. That fight, I spoke to Frank Warren about this earlier in the week. I've got to mention it. 80 million that fight makes, with 2 million pay-per-view buys and Wembley Stadium sold out. The minimum those guys will probably step into the ring with each other for is probably 50 million each. So it needs underwriting from somewhere else as well. The money has to be right, Frank Warren told me. The influential Spencer Brown, Tyson Fury's manager, saying a couple of weeks ago at Fabio Wardley and Joseph Parker that there's only one guy that can underwrite that to make it definitely happen, and that's Turki El Sheikh. Let's see if it happens, because I think it is a £100 million fight. I think we.
It's kind of crazy, though.
Yeah,
it is kind of crazy that a fight of that magnitude between the two biggest stars this country's ever seen in boxing still has to be underwritten by Turki El Sheikh. Like I find that crazy. That maybe the money's just gone astronomical now, but a fight of that magnitude I don't even think it needs underwriting.
3 things: money, timing, and ego. And the timing has to be next year. Otherwise, it's dead as far as I'm concerned. I know I've mentioned it before. I think if it's not next year, the ship has sailed. The ego is, between them, they've probably earned £500 million, those two men, in their careers. So they've got so much richesse, so much wealth, so much generational wealth. They don't need to fight anymore. And the money has to be right. And if the money's right, I think we get them in a ring. It would be a travesty if we do not see that book-ending, era-defining fight between two Brits. Regardless of whether you call them the two losers at the moment of Alexander Usyk, it's still the richest, technically the richest boxing fight in the world, in my view.
Very quickly, just to close on that. So I think the conversation's always been about AJ having a warm-up fight, right? There's not been that much conversation about Fury having a warm-up fight. Do you think Fury will have one as well?
Yes.
So risky, both of those guys
I
having
know.
warm-up fights. How many?
I know.
So risky.
I know.
Yeah, like both at this stage could get chinned. It's so risky.
I know, and I'm also hearing that Fury might step in against like a top 15 guy as well because he wants to go out there and show he's still got it. He's both of them are, and also in the build here as well. As I wrote about, I sent you the piece. Have a look at it if you haven't had a look at it. But with Usyk saying he'll stay till January 2028, there's absolutely sense now. If AJ beats Fury, he could have a third fight with Usyk. If Fury beats AJ, he could have a third fight with Usyk. And if Usyk stays around till he's 41, people are going to start moaning if he doesn't face Moses Itauma as well by that stage. So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Let's see how it all plays out. I harbour hope that it happens, but I feel like I've heard these conversations for the last 5 years and it's becoming annoying now.